What if you never wrote code again? Not because the AI writes it for you, but because you stopped touching code entirely and started writing only the spec. GitHub has a tool with over 100,000 stars that quietly says your code is no longer the source of truth. The spec is. It's called spec-driven development, and it's either the biggest shift since version control or a trap the industry has walked into before. Start with the core idea. For decades, the spec served the code. You wrote a requirements doc. Everyone nodded. Then you wrote the real thing, and the doc rotted in a drawer, out of date by Friday. Spec-driven development inverts that completely. The spec becomes the source. The code becomes a build artifact, generated from the spec, thrown away, and regenerated whenever the spec changes. And here's the part people miss. You don't write that spec by hand. You talk. The AI interviews you in plain English, turns your intent into a structured spec, and you refine it together. Then it generates the code. 3 tools are racing to define this. GitHub's Spec-Kit, over 100,000 stars, and it plugs into almost any coding agent. Amazon's Kiro, now generally available. And Tessl, the most ambitious of the 3. Underneath, they mostly share one pipeline. Spec, then plan, then tasks, then implement. Every stage is a plain markdown file that feeds the next one. So instead of throwing one giant, vague prompt at the agent, you give it structured context at every single step. That's the real pitch. You stop prompting. You start specifying. Kiro makes it concrete. 3 files become your project's single source of truth: requirements, design, and tasks. Then you can wire up hooks. Save a file, and an agent rechecks your work against the spec. It sounds airtight. It isn't. Because spec-driven development isn't one thing. It's 3 different ideas, and the tools deliberately blur the line between them. Level 1 is spec-first. The spec guides the first draft, then you go back to editing code the normal way. This level genuinely works, and you should use it. Level 2 is spec-anchored. The spec lives on, and you maintain it alongside the code. Level 3 is spec-as-source. You only ever edit the spec, and never touch the code at all. That last one is the dream they're selling you. And that's where the architect in me gets nervous, because we have absolutely tried this before. It was called model-driven development. Draw the model, generate the entire system, never write code by hand. It promised the exact same freedom, and it collapsed under its own rigidity. Spec-as-source risks combining the worst of both eras, the inflexibility of model-driven development, plus the non-determinism of a language model that quietly ignores your spec when it decides it knows better. And there's a quieter cost. When the AI writes both the spec and the code, the spec becomes the only thing you actually review. You're trusting it to capture your intent perfectly, and then to obey that intent perfectly. That's 2 leaps of faith, not 1. So here's the honest verdict. Spec-first is real. Adopt it. Today. Writing down structured intent beats vibe prompting every single time. But spec-as-source, don't retire your code as the source of truth just yet. We've seen this movie, and the ending depends on whether these tools learned from the last time. So where's your line? Are you letting the spec drive, or keeping your hands on the code? Tell me in the comments.